Item B, roll call. Chair Seth, I am here. Vice Chair Ned.
Present.
Alder Andy.
I'm here.
John.
Present.
Stephanie.
Here.
And Corey, you said is excused. And Julia.
Present.
And Cody.
Present.
And Mark.
Present.
All right.
Okay, everyone should be marked in.
All right, and on to item C then, the approval of the agenda for today's meeting.
So moved.
There's a
Second.
motion by Randy, seconded by Mark. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. All right, and that passes.
Okay, hang on a second. Approval of the agenda was initiated by Randy.
Yep, and seconded by Mark.
Okay.
All right, then approval of the minutes from last meeting, February 17th.
So
Is
moved.
there a motion?
Second.
By Randy, second by John. All those in favor, say
Aye.
aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it.
Okay.
All right, and then on to regular business. We've got I think this is from Randy, right? A discussion with possible action to Trex Community Recycling Challenge. Is that you, Randy?
Someone else is going to need to talk. I know nothing.
Oh, okay.
So Randy put this on the put this forward to the agenda, and I included an information sheet from Trex. They're manufacturers of recycled. They use plastic recycling to create manufactured lumber, I would say, for decking and for other items. And Randy saw that City of De Pere had implemented this challenge. After a city collects 500 pounds of, it's basically plastic bags, all different kinds of plastic bags. After they collect 500 pounds and they take it to an approved repository, which could be a local grocery store, then the city will qualify for a free park bench.
I would suspect.
It doesn't have to be in a park. It could be a bench anywhere, really. But that's, I think, sort of the gist of the challenge program.
I would suspect that Cody knows quite a bit about this program, since Festival is they're the go-to folks for this program, I think, in our area.
Yeah, so Festival would be the site where you could drop it off. So we were not going to go around, Festival won't go around and pick it up from anywhere, but if it's brought to Festival, it'll get included in the recycling stream and make its way to Trex. But on the front end, when you're collecting it, so if the city's collecting it, whoever's bringing it to Festival to drop it off, you have to weigh it ahead of time and then report that to Trex. So it's a self-reporting program.
Oh, we'll get this in our first bag then.
So
And it's a 6
500
month.
pounds.
It's
Yeah.
6 months, correct, Cody, to
Correct.
meet that challenge?
You have 6 months to meet 500 pounds. It is kind of challenging because it's roughly about equivalent to 50,000 shopping bags. So it seems like a lot, but I think if it's a whole community, you can get there pretty quickly. It's hard for a small business or university or some of these other places that can also qualify for a free bench. But if you're collecting from a whole community, it's very doable.
What happens with the plastic that you collect now? Or that's not,
Yep.
is it the same?
Yep. So the same, it goes back to Trex.
Because it says like you just need 2 bins. So are they giant bins or are they like the little bins?
What do you mean 2 bins? Where does it say you need 2 bins?
Well, the city would receive 2 bins from
Oh.
Trex
Yeah,
when
when you sign up for the program.
when they sign up for the program.
Yeah. So you can collect in any kind of bin. It's just that they're going to provide you with 2 free bins. So anywhere that you want to put a plastic film collection bin, you can put a bin. And then when it gets brought to Festival Foods to drop it off to get included in the recycling, as long as it's in all bagged together, then we can put it in our stream and it won't be a problem.
How do you keep track what comes from us?
See, we can't. That's why you have to weigh it ahead of
Right.
time.
Oh, but and where do we put that information then?
It's self-reported to
On
Trex.
Trex is-
Yeah.
Yeah, it's self-reported. You report it to Trex.
Okay.
So is Festival in this contest or are you trying to get a bench?
No, so we're considered the drop-off site, so we're excluded from that program.
And I know it's been tried, Brown County Libraries have tried it in a couple different sites. And I know the one, the Howard site has tried this, and I don't believe they made it, actually. They just didn't have enough outreach. And it can be, if you're only a small group, like Cody mentioned, it can be tough. I don't know, Cody, if you've talked to a number of other groups around town. I periodically, about every 6 months, I get somebody contacting me about doing this through the county, through our recycling center. And we've looked at it. And unfortunately, it's usually been, it hasn't been a good fit with the group that's trying to do this with our facility. But if it were the city coordinating it, I think we would actually end up citing, a bin at our recycling facility on Broadway. We could do that as part of the coordination, and we'd get that in no time. We'd get quite a few bags in a short amount of time, but they have to be clean. And that's one of our concerns with why we would do it at our site, is that we can't, much as I'd love to pull the plastic bags out of our pile that we see every day, those are not viable. They're just too dirty. They're too beat up. They can't go into the system. So we don't want people dirty bags out and putting them into our drop-off site and mixing with other stuff. So our site is a little problematic, but certainly it's a normal drop-off locations for a lot of people. And if I emptied out my garage right now from the last year of collecting plastic bags, I'd be a fifth of the way there, I think.
We do a similar program at UW Green Bay. We just have held off for the past year because of COVID. One of our student organizations actually does the baling of plastic bags and ships them. We ship it to Trex from there. And yeah, we probably average about close to 500 pounds every shipment. I can talk to the student organization if we're going to be looking, if it turns out we might be short. We probably have 200 pounds baled right now sitting at UW Green Bay. And nobody's doing anything with it. So it would probably be nice it would still get to the same place. And I think it might be a good way to use up or at least unload those bags.
But as I understand it, also it's a one-shot deal, right? I mean, you can't say, okay, if I collect 1,000 pounds, it's not 2 benches, it's a bench. So
Is that true, Cody? It's a one-time challenge. It's
Yep.
not an ongoing collection that,
Correct.
okay.
Yep. You get 1 bench. It doesn't matter if you get, like Mark said, if you have 1,500 pounds, you get 1 bench.
Okay.
on the positive side, and for recycling standpoint, we would love to have this as a stream that was collected outside of just the retail settings where people, because we get asked about this all the time. And it's, festival's great. I mean, Cody and I have talked in the past, and I drop off stuff at festival fairly often, make a trip around the city and the area and drop off a few here and a few there, whatever. But, there are certainly, the community has looked at this as is there a viable option for more of a consolidated area? And we haven't really done it because we would get so many. I don't have the compacting capabilities that UWGB has. I've seen, because that was set up by Crystal Clark several years ago, right, John? I think she was part of the student organization that helped set it.
You're muted, John.
John.
She was part of the student organization that took it over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our concern is just that we don't, we'd get a whole bunch of them, and without knowing exactly how they get brought to festival or to, you're throwing them onto a truck as a backhaul, from what I understand, right?
Yeah.
How do we set up a system that uses that backhaul? Can I convince whatever trucks you're throwing them on to come to our spot as well and haul away thousands of them?
So UW Green Bay and Festival ship, they have the cost of transporting it to track.
Yeah, it's slightly different because we have a dedicated truck that goes to Trex that when it's full, it's all festival stuff, what goes there.
Where are they located?
Trex,
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's in
Virginia is
West Virginia is what I was going to say.
Mm.
I think they have two manufacturing facilities. I think the one that we ship to is West Virginia.
Yeah, UWGB gets paid a real tiny amount for the weight of the plastic, but we don't ever accumulate enough to warrant having its own truck. So when other organizations are shipping their plastic, space is just left on the truck for UWGB's plastic to be added on.
Okay, but after this challenge, we would keep this program rolling, right? I mean, you're muted,
What's that?
Melissa.
Okay, sorry. It would depend on how much staff time is involved in maintaining a program like this, especially for bins that would be located potentially at City Hall. The Parks Department is in charge of facilities at City Hall. So I've already been directed that if we decide that this is something to move forward, that it needs to go through Parks. Their staff would potentially be managing this because if the bins are located in City Hall. I don't think we'd want to put the bin outside of City Hall, just because I think we might be inviting a lot of other stuff into the bin. And City Hall will be reopening April 7th. So, the doors will be open at that point. I don't know if it'll be an ongoing program or not. And maybe if we do have like a strong partnership with the county on something, maybe that would be an avenue to explore.
Well, if we could even triangulate the county, UWGB, and the city, we should be able to organize this, work this out, where we should be able to make this an ongoing program, and with festival too. I mean, I think we got enough entities here and people who are know what they're doing already. We should be able to coordinate. Now, how big are the bins?
Don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, are we going to put it in City Hall? I mean,
Well, I mean, if you look at what the festival has, or some of the other retail organization businesses around town have, they basically all do some kind of bag collection. And I don't know if festival, do you guys work with any of the other retailers or just
No.
festival stuff? Okay.
Yeah.
But they're, I mean, it's a 3 feet by, 3 feet high, 2 feet by 2 feet or thereabouts, a bin that you put plastic bags in. And there's usually a bigger bag inside that. So when people shove their stuff in, then it gets emptied several times a day, depending on how much traffic there is. I think festival probably, because they've set the standard, And I think you probably get the most. I mean, I think your drop off is probably the most active
Yeah.
because you do it everywhere, and I think people are used to that. So it doesn't have to be giant, and it's just a matter of maintaining it. Within there, in the recycling industry, there's a certain standard for how often you have to make sure that you're emptying things and taking care of that container on a regular basis. At first, it's going to get jam packed, and after that, it'll taper off somewhat. But I think that if we also looked at, I know that Troy Streckenbach would be really happy to have something like this, and probably in the northern building or in other county facilities as well. I think we could very quickly get to that point. My concern, though, then is what do we do afterwards? I think we can get to the 500 pounds pretty quickly, given the number of facilities and organizations that would, potentially be involved. It's, I wouldn't want to start a recycling program and then end it after you hit a certain point. The point, it's nice to have that goal of getting a bench, but really the goal is to collect plastic bags, plastic film. There's a really high market demand for plastic film right now, and it's climbing, especially because of the storms in Texas this spring. The plastics industry is starved for recycled plastic because the virgin plastic petroleum refiners went down for a couple of weeks. And that means that the value of recycled plastic, especially right now, is high. Milk jugs are now at the highest they've ever been for recycled plastic, and they're higher than aluminum. They're the highest value commodity out there, which is just crazy. And so it's great, but it's a little crazy at the same time when you think about it.
Somebody's milking.
Pardon me?
Somebody's milking it.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Seth, Ned has his hand raised.
No, he doesn't.
He was counting.
You just want to jump in if you have anything.
I'll jump in, sure. Yeah, I didn't want to cut anyone off, but seems like a good time since Randy's making jokes anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be glad to test something out at the school I work at to see if I can do some collection. The kids go through a lot of Ziploc bags, and we use, a lot of plastic. So things are a little different with our social distancing and not really kids taking alternative paths through school. So I don't know that this would be a great time, but it might not be a horrible time. I can probably see what I can collect, and then if it looks like something that might be viable for the long term, I'll start talking to some other folks in the district. We do have over 22,000 people that use the district facilities on a daily basis. So there's a lot of opportunities for garbage and rerouting some of that. So, not just the county and the city, but also the school districts could be potential collection sources. And I think it would be informal. I don't know that the process would ever be building to building or year to year. But I do know that, there's always going to be somebody going to festival, right? There's probably a lot of us, my family, we drop off large cardboard boxes at festival once in a while, right? So I think there's a lot of people in the community that go there to just give them our trash. And I think somebody would be willing to do this at most sites.
So it sounds like there's a pretty good consensus that this is something worth looking into. Our next steps then could be to refer it to parks. And then while they're looking at feasibility for doing this either temporarily or permanently, they would probably connect with you, Mark, or somebody at the county.
Yeah, in fact, I was going to volunteer to actually take a look at this as a county-wide initiative. Again, because it's something that fits well within our wheelhouse and it's something we've wanted to do. I got a new, really enthusiastic young, clerk who wants to do all sorts of things. So if I ask Claire to start working on this, she will. But the the big piece of the puzzle is going to be, what do we do to make this a ongoing program as opposed to just the aiming for a park bench? Because I really want to be able to do that. I mean, I think it's a great program for the county to have in place. It's just that the hard part has been, it's great that festival provides that opportunity, but that's another, it's a complicated process to make sure that we're getting to festival all the time. And who, if we have, I don't know, when you go to festival to drop off, you for a large collection, let's say we have a pickup truck full, you're not going to go stuff it into the bins you guys have. I'm assuming, Cody, that there's a contact person or at some site somewhere.
Yeah.
And getting to that point is going to be the key to all this to make it successful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
I agree with you, Mark. Actually, just like you said, Ned, it's 22,000 people use those facilities, and I work at UW Green Bay, so that's why it's easy. Like, it took me like 2 years to finally remember to take it to festival, and the bin was packed full. Like, I couldn't even put it in the bin. But yes, if it can become like a habit or part of somebody's life, that's easier, would be much more successful. So if people can bring them to the school or if they're work there, so.
But is there some way to centralize once everything's that's collected throughout the city? Is there some way to like bring it to one place before it gets brought to festival where it can get weighed?
Yep. I would think parks could do that. City's collecting.
Yeah, or I mean, again, we have scales at our facilities, and I mean, that's what we do. We weigh vehicles, and it's within 20 pounds more or less. That's always the threshold. And again, that would be something we would just do as a matter of course for something like this if it proves successful. And does it matter what festival store? I mean, I know your De Pere is your central, your mothership or whatever.
Any store, any festival store, we can take it.
Okay.
I think New Water collects plastic too, from what I've gathered. Do they also ship it with festival, or no? They have their.
I don't know what kind of program they have.
And that may be something, like I said, I know that I've talked to the libraries, I've talked to a couple of other organizations. I forget which ones they were over time. I'd have to dig through my emails because I know one contacted me just recently that they had missed their mark. They hadn't gotten to 500 pounds, and they wanted to know what to do with all the plastic bags. And I said, talk to festival and see about dropping them off there. So it might be worthwhile doing an inventory, a survey of the various organizations around the county and see who's already, have done a program or are interested in participating in this one. And again, not necessarily the focus being the bench, which is a great side part of it, a great impetus for, a one and done kind of thing, but to create an ongoing program. It's trying to create that whole, system that'll continue into the future. And I'm, have to say I'm just thrilled, festival does this because that's great. It's been it's been an easy fix for me. Don't bring it to us, take it to festival. That's that's kind of our mantra right now, but it's an imperfect process sometimes. As a county agency, we always have to be a little careful when we're pointing somebody at a specific business as such, even though that's the only one there is, but or the best option. So.
Cody, do you know if Pick and Save also ships to Trex?
I'm not positive.
Because that's where I take my bags.
Okay.
They have a backhaul with Roundy's with their wholesaler. They throw them on the back of the trucks and haul them
It
up.
sounds like they have a similar process that we do.
Mhm.
My guess is they probably do.
And Randy, do you know if City of De Pere has continued this as a standing program?
I think they just started it. So I don't think they've gotten very far. I think they just started.
Okay.
I don't know for sure, but that's the impression I got. So, and definitely when I brought this forward, I was hoping that this would be the beginning of something beautiful.
Okay.
I really wasn't, the bench is nice, but it really.
Well, I think
would
the
really
bench,
kick off this process.
Yeah, I mean, the bench you would want, if we were going to try to launch something that was more sustainable, that's like the launching point, because that's how you get the community interested in the program and like get it in their brains that, oh, and it's like a competition and it's like, oh, get this bench for the city and get people in the habit of doing it. But
Yeah, I figured we could use that as a PR, we could get the media when we launch this, and
Mhm.
information about what bags and where to drop off and what the prize is and so I'm kind of excited. I hope we can get this all logistically worked out. Mark, good luck.
So it sounds like we have a consensus. Is there a motion that anybody wants to?
Well, to refer this to the county then? Any particular department, just to recycling? What would be
Well, I mean, do you want to be who do you want to be the point on this? I mean, if you're looking for the bench, I think Seth, you had said City Parks Department.
right?
Yeah. So why don't we refer it to?
If we're
Park
gonna have
staff?
a bin located at if we're gonna have bins located at City Hall, then it would be up to the park staff to implement that.
Mhm.
So depending on which direction we're going with this.
Now,
So-
should we refer to parks to reach out then to you, Mark?
Yeah.
Coordinated?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest is we can do things concurrently with, for that matter, we could even make it a competition if you really wanted in some manner.
Whose side are you on, Mark?
Well, I make a motion to refer this to parks and to connect with the county recycling to get this all coordinated and up and running.
All right. Motion by Randy,
I'll second that.
by Mark.
Just going to discuss, obviously this is going to be a big PR thing, not just for recycling, but also for the company, for Trex itself. So do we feel comfortable? I don't know much about Trex. It's kind of a new name to me. But is it a decent company to be giving PR to? What do we think?
Also, collecting plastic bags, it can't be too bad. They're at least doing one good thing.
I'm not going to like endorse any company, but I mean, I've looked into them just looking for trying to figure out sustainable materials for decks and stuff like that. And they seem like the one that keeps coming up. When I look through their stuff, I mean, the whole thing is based off of like more recycling.
Yeah.
So.
And this is not a new program with Trex. It's probably been around I've known about it for at least 5-6 years. It may be longer.
Okay.
And they are working with an organization called plasticfilmrecycling.org. They have a website and Wisconsin was one of the first states to actually get into this program of collecting plastic film. And basically, we haven't found another outlet other than Trex that really consistently takes this. There have been a few others that will, but nothing consistent. We even tried, there's a company in Shawano called Shawano Bag and Film. And I tried convincing them to be a collection point, and they're not interested in it because the complication of sorting and cleaning stuff is more than they want to get into. So, yeah.
Okay. I mean, their Wikipedia page, they look like they do some really good work and are advocating for LEED and zero waste and things like that. So I just didn't know if anybody had any more background because I don't. But
My deck is Trex. It's a good deck.
ooh, you can endorse it, huh? I need to replace my deck, so hey, maybe I'll take a look at. Yeah, I don't know.
My deck is Trex or not? How do you know?
Well, because the previous owners of the house told me it was, and I mean, it gets like sun beaten. It's in really direct sun, and those boards do not warp. They are so strong. There's like very, very little fading. So that's kind of what separates the really high quality synthetic lumber to the not so high quality.
Nice. Well, thank you. I didn't want to take a whole lot of time, and I just wanted to make sure we realize we're going to be giving them some good advertising here, which might be great. They might be a super great company. So, I think it's a good thing. I hope what comes out of this is that we establish some long-term ways of plastic film recycling And relying on, grocery stores to do that, I don't think in the long run is the right way to go, but I appreciate that they're doing it for us right now. I think that's great that they've stepped up to do that. So I'm in favor of moving this forward. Seth, you said you'd prefer it to go to the park committee?
That's the motion Randy made and Mark seconded that we're in discussion on, is to refer it to park staff who would be in charge of implementing it, and they will connect with Mark and the county to look into the feasibility of this. So that's the motion that we can vote on if anybody has any other questions or discussion.
I'm just curious, why park? Is it just for the bench placement, or why are we going park?
Park
If-
would be in charge of, they're in charge of the city hall, so if the bin's there, they'd be doing, and they'd have the means to weigh it and everything else, or work with the county to, collect and get it to the county or whatever. I mean, the Parks Department just tends to be, they get a lot of the cleanup jobs, so shall we say, in the city. So they just wants to be on point for this.
So
Thank you.
Ned, if there is a bin placed at City Hall, then Parks would coordinate that effort. If it was at a different building, then it may be a different department.
Got it. Got
This is just our starting point. If something changes with that and we don't have a bin cited at City Hall and it goes somewhere else, then we'll probably need to come back and talk about it again. Or at that point, maybe staff will say, okay, well, does it make sense to put one at City Hall? Are we going to get that much collection at City Hall?
If I mean, there are other points around the city that also Parks would be responsible for. So we don't have to have it just at City Hall. There are many other places we could go, but it would still be Parks' responsibility.
All right, any other questions or comments on the motion to refer to Parks and to work this out with Mark and the county? Hearing none, all those in favor of said motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. All right, motion passes. This is really cool. I have a drawer full of my first donation. I can't wait to get rid of if this works out. Moving on then to informational items, open the floor, item F, section 1, any updates from members or working groups?
I could speak about our water resolution that we had kind of worked on and off over the last year on, and Julia provided a whole lot of excellent advising and help in crafting that. So and Mark gave it another good set of eyes there when we were reviewing it. And we got some good feedback from the commission. So that was forwarded on to legal in January, and then Melissa sent it on to them, and then it was taken up by City Council on the 2nd of this month and passed unanimously. So we have a resolution on the books now to protect our local waters, which honestly, I still haven't been able to find another example in the country. So I think we might be leading the way in setting that, and hopefully making our city even more attractive for funding opportunities when it comes to green infrastructure and water protection. So very happy about the work that we've done here.
Thanks, Ned, for getting it started and keeping it going and getting it completed. It really wouldn't have happened without some persistence. So it's exciting.
Thank you. Teamwork makes the dream work.
I can share one item related to an issue that Ned brought up a few months ago about having the city of Green Bay perhaps become a bee city. I think just bee city. UWGB last week received certification to be a bee campus, Bee Campus USA. So that is nice. So related to some of the work that he's done with his pollinator corridor, UWGB would have as the idea that it would kind of like to be one of the hubs of the pollinator corridor, maybe from GB all the way to NWTC, and we work with the city to sort of fill in the gap between. But this is a start, and we've be developing a committee on campus for the B campus certification, along with a pest management plan and guides to acceptable prairie flowers and things like that. So that's moving forward. Just wanted to share.
And Randy, this one's for you. So John, UWGB didn't make the grade. You could only get a B, not an A.
I was gonna say he's always A in my book. Did anybody get contacted by Professor Del Toro? He contacted me and I passed him on to Melissa and Ned, and I guess I should have done John as well. He's from Appleton. They're doing the No Mow May, and he reached out to me about doing that again, and I explained what we had brought that up last year and what we did and everything. And he said he was going to reach out to some people. I was just wondering if he did at all.
I've actually heard from several people on No Mow May, and I think we had a good conversation about that last year, and just kind of want to, for those of you who weren't here for that, sum it up. Appleton had proposed it, having a citywide allowance for not mowing your lawns, and allowing you to grow them throughout the month of May without mowing them. And it may or may not have applied to city properties. I don't remember what it looked like in Appleton, but we talked about it here, and this comes from a lot of experience that I've had and that others have had working with native plants and pollinator habitat. Doing a No Mow May in our latitude with our weather, it's a cool like bumper sticker kind of idea, but it doesn't necessarily give a good bang for the buck. A No Mow May, we have a pretty liberal allowance for lawn height in the city of Green Bay already, more so than Appleton does. So it wouldn't change a whole lot of what people can already do in Green Bay. And we came to the agreement as a commission that if we were serious about creating pollinator habitat in the city of Green Bay, it wouldn't be through, for what our latitude would be more of a gimmicky kind of thing. Down in Illinois, Kentucky, I think No Mow May would be amazing and fantastic. For us, just not going to do much. But if we wanted to do more, it would be more of establishing native perennial gardens and planting native trees and things like that pollinators rely on throughout the warmer months. So the idea of a No Mow May, it's cool. Like if you want to let your dandelions go, I do it myself. Like, those early blooming plants, there's just not much in the way of native wildflowers that will get that high and bloom that early in our area. So it doesn't do much, unfortunately, to leave your lawn alone in May. So I think as a commission, and I remember talking with Steve Grenier after we talked about that. I think the idea, if we want to be serious about this as a city, is we would identify land that we own or incentivize processes for private landowners to actually plant pollinator habitat that would remain so all year long. So that's kind of where the no mow May conversation ended up last year. And then COVID hit, and we haven't really, yes, on a related note, I have been talking with Steve Grenier, and kind of the idea that I would like W to adopt is that if they have lawn area that they're not using for any purpose, that can be converted into some pollinator habitat. So, yeah, no mow May, it's a cool concept. For our area, it doesn't do a whole lot of good.
And you've been working with in parks looking at?
Yeah, yes, Parks has always kind of been on board, especially with Corey's influence on Parks, as far as setting aside some land for pollinator habitat. Absolutely. As has the neighborhood division in planning.
Just let it be.
Let it be.
Cool. Thanks for the update on that. Ned, other updates from folks or announcements?
Question, how are we doing on the ordinances that they came to, we had the, is that gonna be coming to INS pretty soon again, or? Melissa?
Yes, so it's been with INS for several weeks. It was included in their packet. And the plan right now is either to, at the next INS meeting, which is March 24th, potentially revisit it again on March 24th. Steve is out for a little while though. So if he is not back by March 24th for that specific meeting, then it'll be on the, I think it's April 14th agenda. So either this one or the April 14th is the plan, depending on his availability. Because I want he and I to both be present for that meeting, so.
Can you talk, I mean, are you just talking about the native lawn one?
Noxious weeds and maintenance of vegetation.
Yeah. What about like, were there other recommendations, or are we going to see other recommendations coming out for codes and ordinances aside from that one? I mean, as you pointed out earlier, that was like one that had a high grade to begin with. So like, or, it wasn't as bad. It wasn't really that bad. That wasn't a barrier.
Yeah.
Were there
I
other
was going to cover this in my update, but I can go ahead and do it now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So if there's other subcommittee updates, I can wait until it's my turn. Otherwise, if there are none, we can move on.
I just had one quick update, and then I'm happy to move on. Brown County is voting on their clean energy resolution tonight. I feel like we say that every meeting because it's gotten tabled and sent back to committee, but this might be the one where it actually passes. So hopefully we'll have another partner on some of the clean energy work, and John and Ned and I have been talking about kind of some next steps there. So hopefully next month we'll have some more updates. But yeah, if there's no more updates, we can go on to Melissa.
Okay, let me just move on to the next spot in the agenda. Okay. Yeah, so for my updates, I was going to just talk about what the current progress is on the Green Infrastructure Codes project. We have the noxious weeds is the furthest one along at this point with INS. And then a draft of what INS received is also in initial law review. So it is with our law department. That doesn't mean that they're going to that they're going to stamp it. They're just getting it formatted, and it's just part of the process to go through in several phases of law review. And then for the landscaping ordinance, which is chapter 13, that's the next one. All of the recommendations and written comments and verbal feedback that I've received from parks, the parks department and forestry staff, as well as staff people from the community and economic development group, the land development team, and some of the senior staff. All of those have been incorporated as to the extent possible, with incorporating those changes as well. So right now, those are all, I've also routed those to law for an initial look over, just to make sure they jive with some of the current state ordinances that are in the code. And then we also have, so it's simultaneously in its initial with law department, but then I'm meeting with a couple of the planners from community and economic development this week to go through those revisions that I've incorporated. That, and it was really mostly their department that weighed in the most on this. There was also some really good recommendations from forestry staff on soil volume requirements as well for trees. So we're going to go through all of those bit by bit this week. And if everything, you know, looks good, then the next step would be that it would go to the Parks Committee, I believe. I think I'm saying that right. It's not a commission, it's the Parks Committee. So, and their department is going to help heavily with getting those in the right order as far as the review goes. And then for chapter 30, the stormwater ordinance, that's the one that's sort of lagging, you know, the furthest behind at this point. So I don't really have any measurable updates to give on that one right now. There were some other, you know, within chapter 13, there's other like how dumpsters are managed, so that there's there's covers and locks, and that they're covered. There's a lot of very small little changes in different sections of the code. So those are all within chapter 13 that are going through right now. I think that was pretty much it. And, you know, the implementation plan that I put together, just basically just a Gantt chart of the different dates that key metrics have happened and the different people that have weighed in on everything, and which departments it needs to go to. I've also been touching back with our consultant on some language revisions that staff didn't, you know, either understand or they didn't see the point in having that, just as getting a little bit more clarity on, you know, let's change this, let's incorporate these. And because she sat at a zoning desk for 20 years, she knows how to write code. So she's been a good resource for me to touch back with and incorporate some of those changes. I think that's pretty much it for the green infrastructure code updates. Most of the staff it was very well received. There was just some questions on the resizing of vegetated buffer strips in between uses in the zoning code. So that's kind of one of the things we're going to work through this week, hopefully. And the other update that I'd like to talk about is the flood resilience scorecard. I don't know if I mentioned this in our last meeting, but Wisconsin Sea Grant has developed a scorecard for flood resilience, and I volunteered City of Green Bay to participate with that, and we'll be getting technical assistance from a fellow that they are bringing on board in the next month or two that will be helping us with that. But we had our first meeting last week with a couple of members of the Sea Grant staff, and so myself, the stormwater utility manager, a couple people from planning, and then also Corey from Parks. That was our initial team, but I'm picturing our team that does this resiliency scorecard to be much bigger than that, to include staff from many departments within the city, because it doesn't just measure, you know, the environmental resilience. You can also look at your social resilience and infrastructure resilience. So I'm hoping to put together a team of people so that we can do that. And that will be a good measure, a good baseline measure for the city on flood resiliency. And that will also give me a lot of direction when writing and creating this the resiliency plan for Green Bay to find out where we're at right now. So that's what I have. Any
Well, that's-
questions?
That all sounds awesome. I'm really excited about the scorecard. In terms of like the resilience, very like rough timeline on when that will be developed and when that could be like completed, or what's kind of the scope there?
You cut out for just a second, Seth, but are you asking what the timeline is on a resiliency plan or on the scorecard?
Yeah. On the resiliency plan, kind of where that is at in the long.
I would say in my first year of employment, not going to happen. Year 2 and 3. There's more ground. I think there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be done before just diving in and creating a plan. So that's why the scorecard will be very helpful. And it will hopefully give, you know, the scorecard hasn't been around a long time, and that's why I volunteered to be a test city for it. And with doing that, you can do it on your own and not ask really for any assistance. And some cities have done it just with having a consultant do that for them, but you really miss out on the opportunity for a lot of departmental and even community collaboration that goes into finding the most vulnerable areas for flooding, or, you know, for flood vulnerabilities in your community. So I'm really hoping that it's more of a, we take a broader approach to it. So with that,
Awesome. Thank you. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Ned and Randy, first and second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. All right. That passes. Happy Saints Day and good night, everybody.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to all you.
Good night.
I
Aye.
Good night. So Melissa, I should get some of that Flexwood, or what is it? Trexwood.
Trex.
Yeah.